eccentric as people claim?
Was surfer rock icon Dick Dale directly responsible for the creation of higher wattage guitar amps?
Hey everybody, this is Big Randy with the Smarts Project. I've provided security and transportation for some of the biggest names in the music industry.
I'm John. I've been a musician for over 20 years, playing everything from metal and punk to bluegrass and country.
We're bringing you a podcast about some of the weirdest myths and legends that the music industry has to offer. This is Tall Tales and Music Mythology. Big Randy Smarts Project. Welcome to the podcast, and with me always on the Wheels of Steel is Mr. Jonathan B. Good.
Hello, everybody.
So, in the music news, you're going to love this. A new study aims to identify psychopaths based on their taste in music.
What? I have not seen this.
Yeah,
what?
Awesome. The Guardian reports that the study remains both exploratory and unpublished, but the team of scientists have confirmed that they are sufficiently intrigued by the results thus far. After evaluating a group of 200 volunteers who were asked to listen to 260 songs, scientists found that those who scored the highest on their psychopath test were among the greatest fans of Eminem's "Lose Yourself" and Blackstreet's "No Diggity."
Yes, I am not a psychopath. I hate both of those songs.
Validation. Those who scored the lowest on this is really going to be validation. Those who scored lowest on the psychopath test preferred songs like "My Sharona" by The Knack and Sia's "Titanium."
What? Yeah. Really?
So for the first
Holy
time in my
crap.
life, I feel like I am extremely sane. Wow, and I love Eminem.
Yeah, I like Eminem, but I hate that song.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I really hate that song.
Oh, God.
And then again, like we talked about on the Marshall Mathers episode, I like his early stuff, and I kind of got away from him after a while. And
Well, you know why? That was before he died.
It was before he became an android. Before he was replaced by an android.
While the NYU team would not disclose other tracks that psychopaths tend to gravitate towards out of fear of compromising any future screening tests.
Right, exactly.
They did mention that the results suggest that psychopaths, quote, favor rap music over classical and jazz.
Huh.
Yeah. In an unrelated story, my ex-wife finally completed her collection of every Eminem album.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting.
That's to underscore it, to understate it.
I really hope they do finally eventually publish this.
Now, what if they come back and they say that people that listen to punk music or...
whatever. I mean, at least I'll know. I'm just curious.
You thought this whole time you were a psychopath anyway.
No. Well, I'm just surprised. That's funny.
So this one is, on my side, is a listener request. Brian from Downingtown, Pennsylvania, which... I know a lot of small towns, but I can't even say that I've ever heard of this one.
Huh. I'd look that up.
Anyway, he had contacted us asking if we knew about the time that Chuck Berry had fired his band on stage. And I've actually kind of crossed paths with him once, but I can't really say that I really have a lot of dealings with him or his band at all. But I had a perfectly good interaction with him. So
yeah.
But there again, I can't even play radio, so maybe that has a little something to do with it. So I usually don't have this quick a turnaround, but it really sounded like a fun subject. And he just contacted us yesterday.
Yeah, and that's really cool. Like I was really excited to see that.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, cool, awesome. People are actually asking. Yeah, again, we encourage it, so please ask more.
And usually. I'll get text or messages or whatever, and somebody will say something like, it sounds like, like a possible episode.
Yeah.
I'll research it and I'll put that in the queue to research. But this one, it really sounded like fun. That's how come I did it.
Well, and I like the fact that it also fosters a sense of discussion too. Like people can chime in on it, like, oh, hey, yeah, I heard about that. Here's some more that I know, and so people can kind of crowdsource the information. I thought that was really cool.
Well, and I kind of feel like it's not us throwing out information to a whole bunch of people. It's like all of us are a group and we're talking about
it. Yeah. No doubt. It was really good.
So anyway, Brian, this is for you, and I appreciate it.
Yes.
Chuck Berry was a rock and roll legend, an innovator for an entire genre, and one of the biggest pricks in American music history. When he took the stage, Chuck Berry could strike terror into the hearts of backup musicians who were booked to play behind the father of rock and roll. We were in a state of total panic, trying to find out what song we were playing and what key we were playing in. Bruce Springsteen recalls in the film Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll, described when the then unknown E Street Band backed Berry at a show at the University of Maryland in 1973. I didn't know.
No, me neither.
And I actually think I've seen a vast majority of Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll, and I don't remember that at all.
Huh.
Yeah. So scores of journeyman musicians have tales of playing one-off or small numbers of gigs through the decades with Berry, who infamously traveled alone, got paid up front, cash only, never bothered with sound checks, and expected his sidemen to play his classics, and sometimes fired them mid-show if they could not.
Wow.
And the cash thing, I had... that's not like such an uncommon thing.
I didn't figure that was.
There's a lot of OG dudes from back in the day, the old school dudes. Like, I'll tell you this, whenever I drove Slick Rick, which is one of the crowning achievements in my life, I have been listening to that brother since 1984.
Yeah.
I was like one of 3 white dudes in southern Indiana that was listening to rap. But whenever I worked for him, I remember specifically whenever the guy that paid him came out with a backpack.
Really?
Yeah. And, that was...
What? It just had cash in it.
Just...
No kidding. Holy shit.
Seen it with my own eyes. Not only did I see the backpack, I saw what was
cash.
in it.
Damn.
Yeah. In fact, whenever he tipped me out, and I told him, man, keep that money. Dude, I was willing to do that gig for free just so I could meet him.
I heard you saying
and
that.
That was an entire weekend. It was him, Dwight, which DJ Chaos.
Yeah.
We did the, if I remember right, it was like some kind of Hampton Roads R&B fest or something like that. But Keith Sweat was there, SWV.
Mm-hmm.
Dude that did the thong song.
Oh, Cisco,
yeah, and Drew Hill.
Oh, right. He was the singer of Drew Hill at one point.
There was a couple of other ones, but that was an interesting weekend in my life. But guitarist Ned Nelter and his band Junior Cadillac from Seattle backed Berry for more than a dozen dates in the Pacific Northwest.
Really?
No entourage, no rehearsal, no set list, no sound check. In fact, they often do the same song in a different key.
What?
He never called the keys or counted off. We just found the key and fell in.
Oh, my God.
Now, I think that's crazy, and I don't even play an instrument. So
all of this is insane. Now, with blues-based music especially, you can there's things you can say. Like you can say, hey, man, play me a 1-4-5 progression in E, and they're going to do that. Like a well-trained group of musicians is going to be able to do that.
Right.
But to just start blindly playing, man, that's tough.
Yeah. So, and
I used to do this in church. Like when I was a kid, I would just pick up the bass at church and play it, and I would have to figure out what the piano player was playing and go off of that.
They didn't tell you what song they were playing?
No. Well, I mean, they would tell me what song. I mean, I usually wouldn't know the bass line to us. I just had to figure it out. So I know what that's like to be like deer in the headlights. Oh shit! What's the chord progression here? And just kind of plinking around until you find it. Okay, there we go.
Oh wow!
It's kind of stressful. I'm not gonna lie.
So he says, my best memory was at Boise State University. He was in fine form, a good mood. He asked 2 couples to join us on stage and dance. Suddenly, we had 40 people dancing all around us as we played.
Nice.
Chuck went to our piano player and started playing the right hand while our piano player maintained the left. Then he switched around to the left hand, and the piano player did the right hand.
Wow.
A natural showman, his sense of pitch was like a laser on a note, even though his guitar was rarely in tune. Danny Benaire was the drummer in a Los Angeles band called the Falcons, booked to play with Berry in March 1980 at the Hollywood Palladium. which that's a legendary place right there, man. The band rehearsed his songs for a couple of weeks with no idea what he would play, recalls Benaire.
Oh, man.
The night of the show, Barry arrived with his own bass player, Jimmy Marsala, which I know you know that name.
Huh.
But otherwise relied on Benaire and his bandmates. During the second song, our piano player, Mickey Mariano, was not seeing that Chuck was wanted to bring the sound down. His head was staring into the grand piano. After the song, Chuck's bass player went up to him and said, "Chuck would like you to leave the stage."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But Chuck did invite him back for the encore. In 1995, Greg Henson was playing with the Circle Jerks at a club in Mississippi, at the club Mississippi Nights in Barry's hometown of St. Louis. About halfway through the show, the stage manager hands me a note saying, "Chuck Berry is here and wants to play with you. Is that okay?" I said, "Yes, of course. Bring him in."
Oh, this is not the same Circle Jerks I'm thinking of then. Never mind.
Oh,
That's a
okay.
different band.
So I unplugged one of my amps and gave him my spare guitar. Barry calls out, "Roll over Beethoven," and Henson turns to the bandmate Xander Schloss. "Oh, shit, what key?" Now, I'll tell you that Brian had sent me a link to an audio of this concert.
Yes.
And
So this is the one.
I believe so.
Okay.
But he came out and was just a prick. I mean, he was like, "Usually I have picks that are sitting right here, but I don't have them now. And usually I have this kind of guitar.
Oh, man.
But this one is a borrowed guitar, so when it rains, it pours, you know." And yeah, he was being kind of a jerk.
Wow.
Everybody in the audience was like, "Yay!" You know, I mean, he could say anything.
Oh, right, exactly.
You know? He could be reading Mein Kampf and everybody, yeah. You know? Then I remembered watching Keith Richards in Hail Hail Rock and Roll that most of his songs were in C, so I yelled C. And we followed his lead. We left before we finished our set, so we didn't get to meet him. Our singer, Keith Morris, heard from the club.
It is the same one then. It is the same Circle Jerks.
Oh, no shit.
Holy shit. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's cool. Our singer, Keith Morris, heard from the club manager that he thought we were one of the best rock bands he'd ever seen.
What?
Who'd have thunk it, he said.
So Keith Morris was one of the original singers of Black Flag.
Oh, shut up!
Yeah, that's who I thought this was as soon as you said Circle Jerks. That's who I thought of.
Right.
And then I was like, wait, they're playing with Chuck Berry. That can't be the same band.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that blows my mind.
Wow.
Because he sang for Black Flag before Henry Rollins.
Yeah, which is just a slightly different genre than...
Yeah, hardcore punk.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally, they're like textbook definition hardcore punk.
Yeah, legendary, right?
Blows my mind. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I absolutely
If
know
I
who
heard of them, they're a big deal.
Yeah. And Circle Jerks are really within that scene, very legendary as well.
Sure, I've heard of
in
them
their
too.
own right.
But
Okay.
see, I was like you. I heard that name, but I was like, surely.
But as soon as you said Keith Morris, I was like, okay, that's
yeah, I mean,
that's
that
him.
would be like having a background band for Chuck Berry that's like Gwar.
Yeah.
Or something. I mean, really.
That is so weird
Yeah.
to me. Sorry.
That's all right. The festival called Summit on the Hudson in 2003 in Westchester County gave Brian O'Callahan his one opportunity to play with Mr. Berry, or Chuck, as he liked us to call him. O'Callahan was hired to play bass with Nate Wilson on piano and Eric Kalb on drums. After getting the gig, I proceeded to record. I proceeded to the record store and purchased 2 double CDs of Chuck Berry music. I listened to nothing else for 6 weeks before the show.
Man.
Showtime, Chuck comes wailing onto the concert site in a Lincoln Town Car the promoters rented for him, per his writer. He said, "I start every song. That's where you get the key and the tempo. Let's rock it." We rocked it for 60 minutes and we were done. It felt like 5 minutes had passed. Unlike those horror stories, he treated us like professionals, equals, and seemed to be having just as much fun as we were.
Good.
In recent years, Ray Anderson has recorded 11 albums that have climbed to the climbed the top Kid albums chart as Mr. Ray. But in 1996, playing in a band called Blue Van Gogh, have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Wow, that's weird. Anderson had one of the more unusual encounters with Barry. He recalls a hot, muggy August night when Barry drove up alone in his rented black Cadillac, which that's what I heard was in the rider, was a black Cadillac he had all the time.
Gotcha.
To play a show in South Dakota at a concert site overrun by a late summer infestation of grasshoppers.
Ooh,
I
okay.
can't imagine having that as background.
That's weird, yeah.
Or I wonder if they would even stop with all the noise.
Maybe. That's a good point.
I don't know. Stepping out of his car, handkerchief in hand, the father of rock and roll proceeded to wipe the grasshoppers off his windshield, taking care of business himself, as usual. We all watched like it was the bottom of the ninth in the World Series game. It was surreal. Recalls Anderson, who sat in on piano behind Barry that night at the Lakota Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. When Anderson asked Barry the key to a song, the rocker said he was whining like Keith Richards. What a freaking honor. That's what Chuck Berry said, whining like Keith Richards. Can you believe?
Oh, he told the guy that he was Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Yeah. He said, "Oh, you're whining like Keith Richards. What a freaking honor." Yeah, holy shit! You insulted me with one of the greatest musicians ever.
That's crazy.
When it came to getting paid, Barry didn't mess around. Steve Fawson of the band Heart by Heart and a founding original bassist with Heart was backstage at the Seattle Coliseum in 1981 when Barry faced down a promoter demanding an additional $10,000. But we have a contract, the promoter countered. He goes, "Fuck the contract." Fawson remembers Barry saying, "I ain't playing unless you pay me another $10,000. The promoter insisted, but our deal was for $50,000. Barry stated, "Look, man, you got two choices. Either go on stage and tell 15,000 people that I ain't playing, or find another $10,000 because I'm not going out there until you do." Barry got his extra cash and took the stage, backed by members of Heart. Yeah.
Really?
Now, I'll tell you that you may or may not believe this, but that happens more in the music industry than you know.
I don't know if it happens as much now, but it used to. I know it used to happen a lot there. Yeah. Absolutely.
I was at a concert whenever that happened, and I was actually present for that conversation.
Really?
Yeah, where there was the artist and there was the promoter backstage, and I'm like a good 10, 12 feet away from them, and I'm hearing the entire thing. And while it's going on, 16,000 people were out at the Hampton Roads Coliseum, and they're cheering for the artist that was getting ready to go on. Yeah. Tom Hambridge played some 30 Northeast shows with Barry from the mid-'80s through the mid-'90s, and recalls a night the singer's cash temporarily went astray. At an amphitheater show in Mansfield, Massachusetts, Barry received his performance pay in cash, as usual, and put it in a suitcase in the trunk of his rented Cadillac. After the show, he realized he had put the car keys in the suitcase and locked them in the trunk. He desperately needed to get that suitcase out, filled with $20,000 or $30,000.
Oh, man.
Stagehands at the venue worked on getting into that car for about an hour. They finally pried open the trunk, and we were all standing there. Chuck opened up the suitcase, took out one $20 bill, signed it, handed it to the guys, said thanks, and drove off. The stagehands ended up framing the 20 backstage. So apparently it's still there today.
Really?
$20, yeah. Saxophonist Arno Hecht, co-founder of Uptown Horns, which backed the Jay Giles Band and Rolling Stones, among others, recalls when Barry first played the Ritz, which apparently is now Webster Hall, in New York City in the early 80s. He apparently fired the bass player after a couple of songs right off the stage.
Wow.
And then he fired the drummer a few more songs later and finished the set with just him and the piano player.
What?
Yeah. For Barry's return to the Ritz, Hecht was asked to recruit a new set of players and tap guitarist John Paris, bassist Charles Torres, drummer Ray Ray, fellow saxophonist Crispin Coe, and keyboardist Charles Giordano, now a member of the E Street Band.
Gotcha.
Chuck's attitude was, if you're going to take a Chuck Berry gig, you should know Chuck Berry material, says Hecht. The Ritz sidemen knew Barry's repertoire so well, he would do songs which he generally never did in concert. They played with Barry throughout the New York area. It came to a point, says Hecht, where Chuck would know we were the guys on the gig, and he actually uncharacteristically showed up for sound check just to jam, just for the fun of it.
Holy crap.
He said it was thrilling. We loved the guy.
That's interesting.
So I just because it was short amount of time, if I spent the 2 or 3 days researching this like I usually do, I probably could have found it. But I really wanted to do this because it sounded like it was a lot of fun.
That's really interesting.
I couldn't find one where he fired the whole band, like any real concrete proof that he fired the entire band on stage.
Right, but he clearly fired several members on several occasions.
Yeah, so technically what Brian said was right because he did fire the whole band, but he did it person by person.
Right.
So he did fire the whole band, but not at the same time.
Oh, now I'm curious. I'm going to look for
I know,
it too.
right?
Either way, he's still firing anyone.
Oh, just one person.
That's crazy.
You know what it reminds me of? Do you remember that there was a movie, it was John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band played the song, and somebody else actually, it was their song. They played it, sang it, everything, but in the movie, there was a...
Is it that thing you do with Tom Hanks?
No,
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, but this other guy lip synced. It was On the Dark Side. Remember that? On the Dark Side. Oh yeah. Shit, I know that song.
No, I'm drawing a blank
I'm just
here.
babbling on like I got Tourette's.
Well, no. I tell you what. What's funny about this? This reminds me a lot of Back to the Future. Okay, because Marty McFly plays Johnny B. Good in that.
Right.
What's funny is before the song, he turns around and tells the band what key to play it in. He tells them. I think he says it's like a 12-bar blues riff. And with a turnaround, and he tries to get really specific as you can in like 5 seconds without practicing with the band.
Right.
So I find that ironic.
It
Also,
was, Eddie and the Cruisers was the movie.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
But also the fact that in Back to the Future, someone locks. I think they lock the guitar in the trunk of their car, and they have to pry it open.
Yeah.
So both of those things.
Well, actually, and I have some. I don't have the trunk thing, but
Okay.
So Chuck Berry once opened a restaurant called the Southern Air in Missouri. According to a former waitress, Berry wired the women's toilet with a video camera and recorded some 200 unsuspecting patrons using it. Yeah. Charges were dropped when Berry agreed to compensate the victims of his, quote, potty cam financially.
Whew.
Gosh, boy, he was a freak of nature. That
Yeah.
was. The melody of the Beach Boys classic "Surfin' USA" is almost identical to the melody of Chuck's 1958 classic "Sweet Little 16."
Mm-hmm.
They sounded so alike, in fact, that the Beach Boys had to give Berry co-writing credit in order to avoid a lawsuit.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I never heard of that, dude.
Man.
Starting young, Chuck sang in the St. Louis Church Baptist Choir at age 6. His first notable performance was on his school's musical stage singing Confession, the blues, accompanied by his friend Tommy Stevens on guitar. Stevens' impressive guitar licks soon inspired him to learn how to play the musical instrument himself.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I'll have to look up Tommy Stevens, but...
the name doesn't ring a bell.
Well, if you never heard of it, then I never did. In December 1959, Berry invited a 14-year-old Apache waitress, Janice Escalante, to work as a hat check girl at his nightclub. Crossing the border, he was soon arrested on prostitution charge and received 3 years at an Indiana federal prison. When interviewed years later, he said, quote, "She was anything but innocent." I don't know if that quite justifies committing a felony, but... You know.
Wait. So he was intending... He wasn't actually hiring her as the hat check girl.
I think that was like a...
That was his cover story.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I was really confused there
So
for a
he's
second.
paying her for her job as a hat check girl.
Right. Checking a hat, all right.
Is that what you crazy kids are calling it nowadays? Between 1948 and 1955, Berry worked as a janitor at Fisher Body Auto Assembly Plant. Trained to be a hairdresser at Poro School, freelanced as a photographer, and assisted his father as a carpenter.
Wait, Fisher Body?
Yeah.
Did you just find a location for where that was at? I'm curious about that.
I think it was in St. Louis.
Oh, okay, never mind. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
And assisted his father as a carpenter, all the while beginning his career as a musician. Chuck got the moniker Johnny from Johnny Johnson, a pianist who collaborated with Berry on many songs, including Maybelline and Roll Over Beethoven.
Oh.
Johnson wrote songs on piano while Berry converted them to guitar and wrote lyrics. Berry joined Johnny's group and the Sir John Trio in 1953 as a lead singer. I thought that was kind of neat.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever heard of Johnny Johnson?
Johnny Johnson doesn't ring a bell.
See, that's only what it's doing to me. It's like ringing a bell, but I'm just not smart enough to know all this stuff. Chuck's famous duck walk dance, as imitated by Marty McFly in that 80s classic Back to the Future, originated in 1956 when Barry attempted to hide wrinkles in his rayon suit by shaking them out with his now signature body movement.
Is that why he did that? I didn't know that. That's funny.
Yeah, I never heard that. Due to being burned earlier in his career and occasional run-ins with the IRS, Chuck always gets paid in cash. A notable occasion in Australia in 1975 saw Barry caught at the Sydney airport with $50,000 in an attaché case. There remains currency restrictions due to this famous incident.
Huh, really?
Because of that
Because
incident.
of Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
Huh.
When he performs live, Barry picks a venue near an Indian restaurant. While at Nottingham Royal Concert Hall in 1990s, the stage door was directly opposite the front door of the Mogul Azam restaurant, so he was able to sneak out the stage door and have his meal immediately. So,
I do love me some Indian food.
hey,
so,
preach it, brother. I like
good
taking
stuff.
it in. Boy, I hate it going out there. So the last thing I got is there's a story that I'm actually, it's not really connected, kind of, sort of, but back in 1997, I was working for a security company in Delaware, and they hired us to do security at a race in the Dover Raceway in Dover, Delaware.
Okay.
And it was a NASCAR thing, which I know nothing about sports.
They're turning left. They're turning left again.
Why are they going in circles? I don't understand. There was so much I learned that day. It was crazy. So, at the same time, I used to bounce in a bar and had a buddy of mine. His name was John that I used to bounce with, and he was a huge NASCAR fan.
Okay.
I have never heard of NASCAR ever in my life until I worked with John.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I knew there was races and stuff, but I didn't know that there was such thing as NASCAR.
Oh.
I mean, I knew it was. They named it something.
Well, like I said, when I was growing up, I think the only two channels our TV got whenever my dad had the remote control were occasionally Comedy Central and ESPN. So, I mean, I knew what NASCAR was from a very young age. Not because he watched it, but because I saw the coverage of it.
So, what I was expected to do was to work security in a pit.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to assume that you know all this car shit when I say it. So, if you don't, just tell me. So, the only way to the back is, or to the infield, is this one gate. Like whenever they're doing their left turns, those turns are banked.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very sharply.
There's a at the beginning of one of the turns, about halfway. Like if you were to look at it like a ramp, about halfway between full incline and flat, there was a gate, and you go through that gate and you go down the little hill that's the track, and then you're in the infield.
Right, exactly.
So,
I've seen the gate open up when they.
Okay, so they gave all the guys that work the pits. They give you your own little golf cart, and golf carts then were little shitty electric golf carts. They weren't like the nice ones that we have now.
Right.
So they gave me my own little golf cart, and it had like the little bench seat, and then it had like a little pickup thing in the back, like a little bed thing. So. My buddy John, I told him that, he's like, oh, where are you working? And I was like, oh, well, I got this thing. I'm working a thing called a pit at a racetrack in Dover. And he's like, oh, my God, you're working the Winston Cup. And he started just shooting all these things at me. Like, I understood most of the shit coming out of his face, but
it's almost like the World Series of NASCAR.
Yeah,
basically.
Apparently it's not like the Winston Cup now. It's like the Popsicle 500 or something. I don't know.
I have no clue.
Apparently,
there's the Brickyard 400. I know is a big deal.
Well, apparently anything that has to do with alcohol and cigarettes, they don't.
Oh, so have they stopped their sponsorships with that?
Thinking, I don't know.
I wonder what it's called
be
now.
Wrong on that. I could just be making.
Yeah, I don't know what the Winston Cup's called now.
So there was a gentleman that was the race car guy by the name of Mark Martin. That was, okay.
Yeah, I know who that is.
I was working his pit. And
really?
A very nice guy.
Okay,
everybody in the pit was just ridiculously nice. So anyway, my buddy John, he's flipping shit. He's like, oh my God, you got to give me like a hat or a shirt or something like that. And I was like, okay, so souvenirs, what you're looking for. And he goes, yeah. Give me something, anything, a hat, a shirt, keychain, something. And I go, okay, cool. And so anyway, whenever I got to the pit, I'm flying down from the gate. I'm flying down about 60 miles an hour, because
it's how steep that
it's pretty damn steep. So anyway, I got to the pit, and I'm introducing myself to the pit boss.
I don't know if you call
Pit
him
manager.
I don't know what you call the head of the pit crew, honestly.
Anyway, whoever the guy is in charge of the pit.
So I think pit boss, you're thinking of a casino.
Oh, Vegas, yeah. So anyway, whoever the bigwig is in the pit, I introduced myself to him, and he says, he goes, "Did you want any swag or anything like that before we?" And I was like, "No, not really, but I got a buddy of mine that he's like huge NASCAR fan. Of course, this guy could tell first 5 seconds he's talking to me. I don't know shit from apple butter about any of this. Like, I know that they got 4 wheels. I'm not an idiot. Of course I know this stuff. But outside of that, I had no idea. And I really thought that they had car doors.
Oh,
they don't.
No, absolutely
they
not.
Get in,
through the window.
Duke style,
yeah.
So anyway, I said, look, I got a buddy of mine. He's a good friend, and he wants a souvenir. So whatever I could get, that would be appreciated. If not, I'll go to one of the trailers out in the parking lot. No big deal, buy a shirt or whatever. And he goes, no, I got you. And I go, okay. So the race goes on, and dude, they go on forever.
Yes, they are so long.
Oh,
holy
my
crap,
God, man! Like I physically felt like I was getting older.
Hours.
And loud. They give me your own little Mickey Mouse headset.
Yeah.
So not the headset, but the ear protection thing.
Right, I know what you meant.
So anyway, I'm just, I don't know what I'm protecting because all there is other pits that are in there. Like who's gonna bug them? Whatever. I'm getting paid. So end of the race comes around, and Mark Martin had won that race.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
Whenever these guys come in and the pit crew takes care of them, they put new tires on and they put fuel and I guess there's other stuff, but that's the biggest thing that
they do it with the quickness.
Oh yeah,
that
crazy,
fast.
Jiffy Lube ain't got shit on these boys, man. No. So anyway, whenever they take the tires off, they'll stack them up and they'll put like LF, like left front, okay, with a white, like a grease pencil or something like that.
Yeah.
So apparently they rotate them out, and they can only use them like 2 or 3 races or something like
right.
that.
Oh, yeah, because they burn through them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they took them off, and there was rocks that was embedded in the. I mean, it freaked me out. I never seen nothing like that.
They get so hot that they start to almost melt. It's crazy.
So this was September of 1997. And so it's not really close to Christmas, but it's it's getting a little nippy outside,
Yeah.
So anyway, end of the race comes around, and the pit manager or whatever he goes, he says, hey, go, you see that stack of tires over there? And I said, yeah. And he goes, go grab one. And I go, all right, cool, because I was asked to do nothing. The most that they asked me to do was try to pick out what flavor of soda I wanted.
Yeah, there's like nothing really for a security guy to do.
I mean, my biggest job was to stay out of the way.
Yeah,
really.
Basically.
So anyway, he said, you see that stack of tires? And I said, yeah. And he goes, go grab one. And I go, okay. So I go grab one, and I bring it back. And he says, put it in the back of your little pickup there. And I go, okay. So I put it in the back of the thing. And then we went on for like another, 15, 20 minutes. And, we're doing paperwork. And, I was shaking hands. Pleasure meeting you. I mean, it was really a lot of fun, a learning experience, blah, blah, blah. And so he shakes my hand, and he goes, all right, man, it's a pleasure meeting you. If you ever need a reference, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. And he goes, all right, well, we're done here. And I go, great. What do you want me to do with this tire? And he goes, give it to your friend. And I was like, why the hell am I going to give him a tire? He wanted like a hat or a shirt. And the guy's laughing, and he's like, trust me, you will be a goddamn hero whenever you give him that tire. I was like, he didn't say bring home auto parts. He said bring home like a shirt. And he goes, trust me, I'm not going to steer you around.
Yeah,
all right, whatever. Yeah. So after that race, they had another race, and apparently they have like let's just say that Mark Martin is like the NBA or whatever. Well, like whoever like a college team is was like underneath them. So
there's all sorts of different racing associations.
Yeah, so
like that.
They do warm-up laps. Okay, so like these guys, like Mark Martin, these guys go like 200 miles an hour or over, which is freaking insane. But these guys that do it less, that's under them, the guys that were racing after them, I was told that those guys, they only go like 160 or they only go 150 or whatever, which is still to me insane.
Right.
I go 75. I'm white knuckling it, the whole damn time. So anyway, my buddy up at the gate is still up there, because these guys got to hang out. I was working for Mark Martin. My day's done.
Right.
So anyway, I think they were racing all into the night, so they were going to race like well into the dark.
Gotcha. Right.
So my buddy, whenever I came down, he says, okay, while they're doing their warm-up thing, he says, whenever the group passes, he says, I'm going to open up the gate, I'll hit you on the back and go. And I go, okay. So then, of course, I sailed down.
Right.
So now, I'm in the golf cart, and there's my fat ass, but there's also this tire in the back.
Oh, no.
And, dude, they're a lot heavier than what you think. They're not like the tires.
Those things are heavy.
Yeah, they're not
as
like
hell.
the tires on my little car. They're like 10 pounds or 15 or whatever.
They're super.
Dude, these are like picking up a damn teenager,
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm at the bottom of it. I'm looking up at my buddy, and he goes, okay, same thing. Whenever they pass, I'm going to open up the gate. I'll give you the word and go. And I go, okay.
Oh, no.
So anyway, those guys pass. He opens up the gate, and he goes, go. Man, I floored that thing, and I got about a quarter of the way up, and that thing is struggling, man.
Oh,
and I was going, I mean, it just wasn't going anywhere.
No.
I physically had to get out, and I'm pushing on the steering wheel, pushing this thing up the hill.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, and so I was maybe about like 2/3 or 3/4 of the way up there, and I looked to my right.
Oh,
and guess who's coming around the corner?
Oh, dude.
So I was like, oh shit, man, my butt puckered up. I was like, oh my God. So I kicked in the nitro, man. I'm like pushing like I'm gonna win something, right? Finally, I got to the top of it, and of course they're like, no. I mean, just flying by, right? So I got home, and the next morning I went over to my buddy John's house. And I had the tire in my back seat, but I went up to his door, and I knocked on the door, and he answered the door, and he goes, where's my tire?
What?
I said, that's exactly what I said. Like, how did you know that I got a tire? And he goes, come here, let me show you something. So, you know how ESPN has those blooper reels?
Oh, no. Are you serious?
Oh, it's way worse than what you think. Whatever's going through your mind now, it's way worse than what you think. So he shows me this tape, and it's of course, we're old school, so we had
VHS, right.
So anyway, he showed me this tape, and apparently they had like the Kiss Cam, and they blah blah blah, So,
right.
They got the big old Megatron jumbo screen out there. Yeah, so as my fat ass is pushing that thing up the hill, they had the camera on me. So my shirt's untucked, the top crack of my ass is flying out. I'm blinding everybody with this non-tanned white ass, and I'm pushing it up the hill, right? As this is happening, they're playing Run Run Rudolph.
Oh my God! Okay.
And there was people like they would pan across the crowd, and everybody's like, "Go, go, go, go!"
Oh my God!
When that happened, I did not hear the people. I did
No.
not hear the song. The only thing I knew is I need to get my ass and this little electric car through that gate right now.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, so I gave him the tire, and he actually used it as like a coffee table, like put a piece of glass on it or something like that. Yeah,
Dude, that's
and
hilarious.
Years later, whenever, oh God, man, this was, I want to say it was like, oh geez, I can't even remember. But anyway, I wanted to tell that story to Chuck because I knew there was going to be a time.
Yeah.
Getting into the security I was getting into, I knew there was probably going to be a time that I was going to run across him.
Yeah.
And I wanted to tell him that story. And the only run across I ever had with him is like we were literally in the same room together.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't really appropriate for me to tell him that song.
And I'm guessing he would not have reacted well if you just went up to him and told him that story.
Yeah. Well, and plus he was a very little dude. He
Right.
was skinny and he wasn't really that tall. So.
But like we were talking about, intimidating.
Yeah.
Very intimidating.
Well, I mean, I wasn't a musician, so I don't give a shit.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You can fire me.
Oh, yeah, touche.
Yeah,
Touche.
So, but anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. We'll be right back, and John's going to tell us what he's got.
All right.
Oh, hello there. My name is Jason, and I'm the host of Evansville Podcast, proud member of the Evansville Podcast Network. On the Evansville Podcast, we talk with people in and around Evansville that own businesses, put on events, or are doing interesting things in the tri-state. So check us out at evansvillepodcast.com or find us on your favorite podcast app and learn something you didn't know about life in Evansville. Good job, everybody.
All right, and we're back. So, we've talked before about how sometimes we forget how broad we can get with our stories. It doesn't just have to be an urban legend or something like that. It can just be a cool story,
right?
Kind of like what you had there. And in this case, I've got a very guitar-centric story. I came across this from a suggested video on YouTube, and my suggested video feed is a very strange feed. It's nothing but it's a
Why
very
am I not shocked?
strange combination of like boxing and MMA videos, comedians, political commentary, fighting game videos, and guitar-related content. And so this video pops up of Dick Dale. And I was like, oh, cool, I want to watch this.
Sure.
And ended up learning a ton about the dude, which, I got into him kind of at early college. I was doing a project about Quentin Tarantino movies for a class I was in, and I used the song Miserlou for it. I'll get to that in a second. Mm-hmm. But so I knew a lot about the guy already, but I learned a lot about him while looking into this. So he's one of those guitarists that a lot of people don't know the name of,
right?
But a lot of people are familiar with his work nonetheless. And generally speaking, you can usually tell people, "Hey, it's the guy who played this song from the opening of Pulp Fiction." And people, "Oh, that song!
That
okay,
guy,
yeah, I know
yeah.
that song." And that song, of course, being Miserlou, which was a traditional Mediterranean song that Dick Dale actually did a rendition of in 1962, and more or less defined the sound of surf rock with that song. Some surf rock purists will point to songs by groups by like the Bel Airs, the Northern Lights, or a few other random obscure bands.
Right.
But for all intents and purposes, Miserlou is really what defined that sound. That might just be my opinion, but I think it's pretty safe to say a lot of people would agree with me on that
Right.
one.
I didn't even know that was a song.
Oh, gotcha. Well, yeah, that's the name of the song. You know what song I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, that's a great guitar lick.
Oh, hell yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure it's easy as hell to play, but
It's not as difficult as you think. Yeah, because I mean, it's just picking really fast. Really.
Yeah.
And that's what he was known for was that super fast tremolo picking, which I'll talk more about that
Right.
here in a bit too. But what I didn't know, like I said, I already knew a little bit about Dick Dale from listening to him. But what I didn't realize is just how instrumental, pun intended, Dale was in the transformation of the sound of rock guitar. Which it's fitting I talk about this considering that Chuck Berry also was very, very instrumental in that.
Sure.
I mean, we were talking about Johnny B. Good. That song very much defined rock in its early stages too, or was a very defining moment in that. Mm-hmm. So since a lot of people don't know a whole lot about Dick Dale, I'd kind of I thought it would be a good idea to give some backstory about the guy, because despite my brashness with my opinions of music, I do try to be as objective as possible in judging music's merit. Yeah, like I really try to be objective with that.
Even if you don't like it, the music or the artist or whatever, you're pretty fair and balanced about it.
Yeah, I try to at least be consistent with how I judge music too. And one of the best ways I think to be able to judge music more objectively is to know about music history. Because if you know, hey, this influenced this, well, hey, let me go back and listen to that. Okay, well, that was influenced by this. Well, let me go back and listen to that. And you can draw a lot of parallels in a lot of music. I think history is just... I enjoy learning about history in general, but music especially has always interested me a lot. So, anywho, Dick Dale, real name Richard Anthony Mansour, quickly created a name for himself in Southern California in 1950s. He was selling out packed ballrooms of 3,000 to 4,000 people each night every weekend, and like I said, was doing this in the 50s. So, pretty clear he was defining the sound of surf rock, even if he was not who put out the earliest singles, so to speak. But something else that, talking about judging music, something that's a big deal to me is authenticity. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to authenticity, Dick Dale is about as authentic as it gets because the dude was actually a surfer. I mean, he would be surfing all day and then going and playing shows.
Oh, so he's living the life.
Dude, yeah. I mean, he was legit as could be with this. So, I mean... it wasn't just jumping on a fad of popularity with surfing. I mean, that was his life. So since he was located kind of near the headquarters for Fender, the manufacturer of numerous guitars, amps, various other pieces of musical equipment. He actually struck up a friendship with their founder, Leo Fender. And in fact, Leo personally gave Dick his first Stratocaster.
Oh, gee.
Along with a Fender amp as well. I don't know which one it is, if it was like a Champ or a DeVille or what. But he told Dick to beat the hell out of it. Was his quote. And so, as in, like, he wanted him to start playing it right then and there. Well, immediately Leo starts laughing at Dick, at Mr. Dale here, because Dick Dale was left-handed, but learned to play on a guitar that was made for right-handed players, and he would flip it upside down. And I've heard of numerous guitarists doing this over the years.
I've seen pictures of him, and I just thought that was the way, because I never look at the string structure, because obviously the bass is going to be, thicker than the
exactly.
The lower, but I saw that the neck was upside down.
And when the video that I came across this story in, that was the first thing I noticed, was like, wait a second, he's playing a guitar that's strung upside down. Holy shit, I did not know that.
Right.
I've heard of there's been various guitarists over the years that have learned to play like that, some of which were fairly famous, but I didn't realize that he was one of those as well. Well, so Leo stopped laughing when Dick proceeded to blow up the amp, literally.
Oh.
Yeah, because all guitar amplifiers at that time were tube-driven.
Right.
And, as I've talked about, even the higher-end ones today are still tube-driven. I have a solid-state practice amp, but my main amp over there is a tube-driven
Is solid-state and tube the same thing?
No, those are the exact opposite.
Oh, so it went from tube to solid-state.
Correct. Well,
Ish.
the highest-end amps today, the most sought-after amps, are still tube-driven amps.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We've talked about this before.
You talking about the warm-up thing and all that?
Yeah.
Okay, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, solid-state amps are easier to deal with in the fact that there's not really much to go wrong with them, but they're very, very sterile sounding. They don't have much character to them. They're very dry. It's hard to describe, but tube amps just sound warmer. They have more character to them. They respond to your picking dynamics. Like if you just barely pick a little bit, they sound fairly clean. If you really strum the hell out of it, they break up nicely and have more distortion to them. I can talk about this for a very long period of time. And
we talked about it during the Brian May thing, didn't we?
Yeah, we talked about it some then.
Yeah. Oh, see,
at this point, I'm talking to like 5 people who are still actually interested in this.
You move on.
I'm gonna move on a little bit.
Move along, white man.
But essentially, what vacuum tubes are is just a light bulb minus the light producing filament.
Get the hell.
Is what they are.
I'll be damned.
Yeah. So they generate a lot of heat.
Yeah.
They get really hot, and the harder you're playing, the hotter they will get as well, because they're responding. That's what makes them dynamic, so to speak, is that the harder you're playing, the harder you'll actually see them like
expand and contract?
No, not expand and contract, but light up more and darken more.
Oh,
like if I turn on this amp, after a while, once the tubes are warmed up, you'll see them glowing.
I'll be
down inside of it. So you can blow them up that way. If you're playing too hard, you're putting too much power through those tubes.
Right.
They're going to blow up
and he blew
catch
the shit
fire.
out of his.
Yeah, and so not only did he blow up that one, he proceeded to blow up 48 more.
Oh, wow.
48 more.
Well, he was going to win
amps.
something or something.
Yeah. I mean, not at the same time, obviously. It was over the course of a long period of time. But yeah, I mean, they will literally catch fire, because you think about a light bulb, it's got that filament in it there. Well, picture it in a very confined space, but now instead of just one, you've got like 8 of them.
Right.
Depending on the amp.
Probably no ventilation in it.
Well, no, there's a little bit of ventilation.
A fan?
Oh, no, nothing like that. No, nothing like that.
You'd think that somebody would have put a fan in that damn thing.
I don't know. I don't know why they don't. I don't know if it's because that's more power that it has to draw, and maybe that sound would not be desirable to hear a fan.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Anywho. So yeah, it's easy to blow tubes if you're not careful. Well, you've really got to be playing hard to do that. And that was what Dick Dale was known for, was playing hard. I mean, he played the shit out of the strings. So Leo asked him, why, hey, Dick, why you got to play so loud and blow up all my amplifiers?
Right.
Because Leo was giving him these amps, mind you, too. Like, he was not having to go and buy a new one every time. Like, Leo was more or less sponsoring him.
Yeah.
And so Dick Dale explained to him that the drummer Gene Krupa was actually a big influence on Dick Dale's playing.
Get out.
And so he viewed his playing style as rhythmic rather than a regular guitarist, really. He even mentions in the video that I watched, when he first started playing with other people, they're like, hey, Dick, you got to play more than one string at a time. Because he just tremolo picks on one string, which is what most of his playing style is. So he's explaining this to Leo, and Leo's still kind of scratching his head like, I don't know what you're talking about. And, well, so finally, Leo and his head designer, a guy by the name of Freddie T., I did not look what his full name was, went and saw him play a sold-out show to 4,000 people at the Rendezvous Ballroom in Balboa, California. And in the middle of the show, everybody's just screaming like crazy around him, and Leo turns to Freddie and said he finally understood what Dick was trying to tell him. So, well, decided it's time to go back to the drawing board. So they took many of the specifications that Dale had in mind, and they went to a man by the name of James B. Lansing, who had a speaker company, to make 15-inch speakers. Now, 15-inch speakers are usually reserved for bass amps, so I thought that was very interesting.
And how big was his speaker that he was blowing up?
The ones that he was blowing up were probably either 10s or 12s.
Okay.
So he wanted 15-inch speakers to handle more volume,
right?
Without getting woofy,
right?
Because if you ever heard like a very bass-heavy sound through shitty speakers, it gets this weird like. The best way to describe it is woofiness.
Like a cheap car stereo.
Yes, exactly. Just like that. Yeah. Just like that. And so not only was Dick playing incredibly hard, he was also using incredibly thick strings. Now, most of the time I use either 54 or 52 gauge strings. I don't like 48s. They're too thin and flimsy. He was playing with 60 gauge strings.
Oh, shit.
Those are huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of bass.
Right.
On that end as well, so that's why he wanted a bigger speaker to accommodate this, and also to accommodate his pick attack. He would pick so hard with such heavy strings that he didn't have to worry about the strings breaking. He had to worry about wearing through the strings.
Oh, geez!
Because of how hard he picked.
Even with that thick a string, I'll be damned.
Yeah. So this company, James B. Lansing, that's JBL speakers today.
Shut up!
Yeah, and so that's who made the speakers for this amp that Dick Dale and Leo Fender were working on. So they made the speakers originally, and then because, again, of how hard he was playing, the speaker cones would start to twist and distort, because of how hard he was playing.
Right.
So he actually revolutionized speaker design as well, because he suggested to put a rubber strip around the outer edge it would allow the speaker to move back and forth without twisting.
Is it rubber or is it foam?
No, these were rubber.
Okay.
That they used around the outer edge.
Yeah.
Just around the outer edge.
Yeah.
So he actually revolutionized speaker design as well, inadvertently.
So that took a lot of stress off of
the cone of the speaker.
Yeah, I see how that. Okay,
exactly, and that's why when you see speakers that are quote bumping,
right,
that's because of Dick Dale indirectly, because of that rubber ring on the outer edge of the speaker. So now to drive those speakers properly, Leo had to create a whole new transformer for the amp.
Oh, geez.
Because most of the amps at the time were only 15 to 20 watts. For Dick Dale, he created a 100-watt amp. He was and that's kind of the standard now. Like when you see like a half stack or a full stack amplifier, almost universally they're 100 watts. So like Eddie.
But back then, that was some Star Trek shit.
This was the first 100-watt amp.
People thought he was crazy.
Yeah, everything else before this was like 15 or 20 watts or something along those lines, and 100 watts of tube power is stupid loud. My amp over here is a 50 watt, and holy shit, if it gets above 3, it is almost uncomfortably loud down here.
No kidding.
And I've only turned it all the way up once, and holy shit, it was loud.
People in X County were pissed off.
Yeah, it's 100 watts of tube power is stupid loud. So, but long story short, the Fender Showman, which is an amp I've heard of. I know the Showman. It's a legendary amp. But it was finished in 1960, actually, 2 years before Dick Dale released Miserlou. But Dale wanted the amp so badly that even though it wasn't completely finished, he begged Leo to give it to him.
Right.
So Leo...
The prototype.
Yes,
right.
Correct. So Leo quickly wrapped some tan-colored Tolex over the wood and thus accidentally created the iconic look of it and many other Fender amps. Many Fender amps to this day, especially like the Hot Rod, DeVille's, and there's another one too. It's slipping my mind. I can't think of it at the moment.
Right.
Have this same color, and it was just a happy accident because most Fender amps are wrapped in black Tolex.
Okay.
But there's a select few that are wrapped in this tan-colored Tolex, and that too is because of Dick Dale. Because that was just what Leo had closest by to him, and just okay, here you
Right.
go.
No strategy behind it. So
no,
I'll be damned.
yeah. So this is it was very interesting to me to learn more about this.
Is he still alive?
Dick Dale? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's still playing. His son plays with him quite a bit now too. His son is an artist as well. I didn't know that.
Right.
I've never heard anything by his son, but he's got his own signature Fender guitar as well.
Shut
his son
up.
does. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, didn't know that.
Yeah.
But
So there's hope for Ace Frehley's kids.
maybe. And for what it's worth, I'm not a huge fan of Fender guitars necessarily, just personal taste. But I do love Fender amps.
Yeah.
The best tone I've ever personally achieved was my ESP Eclipse over there through I've got an Ibanez TS9DX Tube Screamer pedal through a 73 Silverface Fender Twin Reverb. Holy shit. Best tone I have ever gotten in my entire life. Sounded amazing. So
I just sometimes think that you have some kind of weird, undiagnosed form of Tourette's that I'm not really familiar with.
But yeah, I thought this was very interesting to me to learn more about this giant piece of Fender history and this giant piece of guitar history, and the fact that it was tied to Dick Dale. That really blew my mind to learn about this. So really cool.
They have, I want to say it's one of his guitars. I'm sure there was like a long string of guitars that he's had through the years.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody in his position probably would. But one of his guitars is in the Experience Music Project in Seattle.
Nice.
And
is it gold colored by chance? Do you remember?
I'm going to say it's red.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I mean, I could be making that shit up, but
because like his iconic guitar is a gold-colored Fender Stratocaster.
Oh, is that
I wasn't
right?
sure if
yeah, I'm not entirely sure on the color, but they have a room. Well, they did. Well, last time I was there, they had a room of guitars, and it started with like a really shitty box guitar, acoustic guitar, and I think it had like 3 strings or 4 strings or something like that, and then it went all the way up to like Randy Rhoads Flying V or something like that, and then everything in between.
I wonder if that was a lute actually that they had in there.
I think it was actually.
Okay, yeah, because I think that only had 4 strings, if I'm not mistaken, and that's like Middle Ages.
I don't think it went back that far.
Okay.
I think it went back maybe like early blues.
Okay, gotcha.
So what's that, 20s, 10s?
Yeah.
Ish.
I mean, acoustic guitars were being manufactured back in the 1800s even. I think Martins were being made back then. Maybe Gibsons.
They have. Sure. So, if you're anybody that's a guitar person, you consider yourself a guitar person like I do. I consider myself a guitar person. I'm up to like 4 notes right now, but that's really something. If you're in the Seattle area, to stop by the EMP,
I'd love to see that.
Oh my God, dude, you can make an entire vacation out of that. It's just something else. But that was pretty impressive. There's a few things that stand out, and his guitar would stand out. Randy Rhoads' guitar would stand out, and the guy with half a finger from Black Sabbath.
Oh yeah, his SG. Tony Iommi.
Yeah.
He played a Gibson SG, which is also what Angus Young played.
Yeah.
As well, obviously.
Oh, was it a Gibson SG? I always thought that was a Rickenbacker for some reason.
Gibson SG with his was really unique too because it had a Maestro tremolo on it, which is kind of similar to a Bigsby, like what that guitar over there has. It's not a regular knife edge tremolo like a Stratocaster has. It's more for vibrato,
right?
So his Angus's always sticks out for that reason,
right?
But
the body style, man, is just so. I guess body style and color on his. I'm just a big Angus Young fan.
Well, as I've said before, I mean that was one of the things that got me into playing lead guitar. Like what got me to pick up the guitar instead of the bass was actually Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day, because I was like, if this asshat can play guitar, so
damn it, man.
But Angus and Stevie Ray Vaughan were definitely two guitarists where I was like, man, I would love to play lead guitar like that. So.
You know what's funny is that I remember seeing an interview with Angus, and he was talking about his brother was
Malcolm.
He said that Malcolm was a better guitar player than him.
He always says that.
That just shocks. Do you think it's out of modesty, or?
I think it's a combination of that, and also that Malcolm writes most of the wrote. I'm assuming he doesn't now. Right. Wrote most of the music. So maybe that's kind of what Angus was hinting at, is that Malcolm was really a better writer, because I mean he always would just play the rhythm part.
Sure.
Angus plays the leads, and
so guitar as a whole, looking at it as a craft, he knew more. He had a wider breadth of knowledge, whereas Angus knew that he was more of a lead guy.
Right. I think that's what he really means when he says something like that, because I have never seen Malcolm do anything but play chords, really, and some very simple.
What does he play? He plays a Rickenbacker.
He plays a Gretsch.
Does he?
Yeah, he plays I think it's a Gretsch Duo Jet.
You know what? You're right. I do remember that now. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's a Gretsch. I think it's like a tan-colored guitar, if I remember correctly. Because with Gretches, you can always pick out the pickups really quickly. They have a very distinct pickup shape to them. That's what always. And the headstock's fairly distinct too, but that's. Most guitars, you can tell what it is quickly from the headstock.
Yeah, but, it's so much different now than like back in the 70s and 80s. Early 80s. Now they got so many. You can get a body style and it's like all Fender, and nobody ever had one like that. Whatever. But back in the day, a Fender looked like a Fender looked like a Fender.
Yeah. You would have just a few lines from a company as opposed to. I gotta say though, the big name guitarists still mostly play some variation on a standardish body. You don't see too many guitarists going for really crazy, unique body styles. It happens occasionally.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's usually, oh, hey, this is a variation on a Strat, this is a variation on a Tele, a variation on a Les Paul, an SG.
You don't see a lot of like, the Cheap Trick 5-neck.
No, you see double necks occasionally.
Yeah.
The guy from Coheed and Cambria occasionally plays a Gibson. It's an ES 1275, I think, is what it's essentially a double necked SG, is what it is. And Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin played one as well.
Lil Wayne.
Did he play one of those too? What?
It was very.
Did he hold one of those and try to make music come out of it? Because playing would be.
You know what, man? I tell you what, he looked. I don't even know how to compare it.
It's bad. I've seen videos of him holding a guitar and picking at strings. I will not even say picking the strings. I
think that I would have that same look on my face if somebody said, "Here, hold this Fabergé egg." I mean, that was the look that he had on his. Like he has never held one of those in his life.
He was proud of trying to play guitar there for a while, and I'm just like, man, dude, you're bad.
I'll say this: I respect him. A lot of people don't have a lot of good things to say about him, and I can pick out some bad shit too. But I will say that there's a lot of good stuff about him, and like he tried to come out with some like a skater version of like boards and clothing and stuff like that. Oh, really? Yeah, and he plays about as good a guitar as he is a skateboarder.
Yeah, he's not a good skater either. Yeah, that's very true.
You see my
I didn't realize that he had a skateboarding line, though. I knew he tried to skate and failed miserably. But
yeah, I think that's the way his guitar thing is going, too.
Yeah, I haven't seen him playing guitar at all
But I will say this, he tries it and he does it in public.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But he's got the balls to go out and do it.
I'll give him that.
Yeah, that takes cojones.
He had a rough childhood too.
Did you ever see that interview with him where he was? They were talking about racism, and he says, and I tell you what, man, I got crazy respect for him because of this. Now he's like you said, he had a hard life.
Yeah, his dad is messed up,
and he's had a little. He's no stranger to the jail,
right?
And
right.
He had an interview with some dude one time, and they were talking about. I think it was like right around the time of Ferguson. I could be wrong, but it was some kind of racial junk that was happening, and absolutely made zero sense. And anyway, they asked him about that, and I can't remember the name that he used, but the guy said whatever the question is about racism, and he says, "Look," he says, "I'm going to tell you." He says, and he described this situation that was happening in his house, and he says. There was a white man that saved my life. He says there was a police officer that came in and he grabbed me up out of that place and he took me to this and he did that, and I've been knowing him for years and blah, blah, blah. And he says, I don't know anything about racism. He says, I know a white dude named Uncle John or whatever his name was.
Yeah.
And he was a really good dude and he saved my life, but I don't know nothing about no racism. And boy, I tell you, I mean, I just kind of, I really screwed up quoting him. I was really just kind of paraphrasing, but I could just get chills thinking about that interview because I mean, he was so dead on, what he said was like narrating my thoughts.
Gotcha.
Because one of my best friends, Rod, this is a black man. We've saved each other's lives a couple of times, and I remember I had friends of mine that was black, and I would say, oh, my buddy Rod's in town, and we're going to go meet him, and yada yada yada. And whenever we get to the restaurant, and they're like, oh, you didn't tell me he was black. Well, I didn't know it mattered.
Yeah.
But I've had white friends that said the same thing. So it just I don't know, man.
That's how I feel about it. I mean, I don't give a shit what color someone is. I mean, they're either a good person or they're not.
Yeah.
I don't judge anyone based off of that, and anyone who does is stupid. Period.
I've never had any exposure to Lil Wayne, mainly because a big fat white guy at a rap concert, you kind of stick out a little bit, and security companies know that,
Right.
So, you're not gonna see a whole lot of big fat white guys that are working in front of the stage,
right?
You're gonna see pretty much anything that's non-white. So you're going to see Samoan guys, you're going to see black guys, you're going to see Latino guys, and but backstage, it's pretty much merit based. Like if you're good, we don't care what you are.
Exactly.
Because really all you're doing is you're walking them to the bus, or you're walking them to the car, or you're walking them to the hotel, or whatever. So it really doesn't care. Nobody really cares. But I really respected the shit out of him for that interview. I don't know if I don't know if I know anybody that's ever worked for him.
Okay.
But I'd be interested to meet him and see if he's really like that,
Yeah.
Because anybody can talk a good game. But,
right.
But I tend to believe that he's really like that.
No, I completely agree. I've heard good things about him as a person myself. I'm not a huge fan of his music, and I love good hip hop.
Yeah.
I love good hip hop, but I've never been a big fan of his for some reason.
It's one of those things that it's music, and like you said, it might not fit into your Venn diagram, but you can respect.
Yeah, I'm definitely not saying he sucks. I'm just saying it's not my taste. I respect the dude, and he's clearly doing something right to garner the praise that he's due, but it's just not my.
But you know what? You're not going to see any Yo-Yo Ma on my phone either.
Exactly.
Scary deal. So, all right, brother, you got anything else?
Nah, man, that's
Just
it.
Bring it home.
All right, everybody. Well, hey, as always, if you have any sort of urban myth or legend or just interesting story you would like for us to do on the show, you can find us on Facebook at Tall Tales and Music Mythology, or on Twitter at T2M2 Podcast, or you can email us at hosts, HOSTS, at T2M2.org.
And for the Smarts Project, you can visit us at our home on the web at thesmartsproject.com. And our complaint department is open 24 hours a day at Randy at thesmartsproject.com. In the meantime, more than ever, be kind to each other. Tell your kids you love them each and every day. Never be a myth.
Always be a legend.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.